Good morning, everybody. Natalie Kimchi Lab, Spirit and Coffee. Salud to you. Ah, so yummy. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you that are in the US. And I don't even know if people are going to get on here because it's Thanksgiving and maybe people from the other side of the world will, but it's super early, right? It's 7 o'clock on Thanksgiving. Good morning, Kumar. Good morning, those on Podbean. And so who knows who's up? Maybe people are up and excited because the turkey is, on, or they could smell the yummy food so they can't sleep. But for those of you who are not in the United States and not celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving anyway. A day of gratitude for sure. The story of Thanksgiving probably not accepted by most, but we won't get into that. But we will say this: every day is a good day to give thanks. So you don't have to wait for a holiday to be grateful, to be thankful, to reach out to people, let them know that they matter to you, and that you're super excited to have them in your life, and to be grateful for the things that we do have, like, for instance, the fact that I'm sitting here in a nice, cozy, warm house because it's super snowy outside, and I have a nice cup of coffee. Now, I am ready to go to work. However, don't know that I'm going to do it because I can probably not even get out of my driveway, and I cannot even, I don't even know if I could drive down the road. And besides, I don't trust people, if there are people on the road, that they're going to drive safely in where I live, because people drive crappy even when it's not snowing. Okay. So it's snowing outside, by the way, where I live. So it's pretty. It's Christmas. It looks like a winter wonderland out there. Okay, so let's get started. I guess we could talk about gratitude for just a little bit. And there's three things that I live by: the secret sauce. If you guys remember, I say it over and over and over again: gratitude, forgiveness. Well, first forgiveness, then gratitude, then love, in that order. Forgiveness, gratitude, love. And forgiveness for, when things are crazy, out of control, right? Good morning, Leonard. Good morning, Henry. Good morning, Melanie. Good morning, Dylan. Who else do we have on here? I think I said good morning to everybody. Um, that first we forgive, then we have this sense of gratitude for things, and gratitude and thanksgiving, giving thanks, sort of the same thing. But I think gratitude digs a little deeper into things, right? Or into giving thanks, and being, recognizing the things that we do have and being grateful for the stuff that we do have. So gratitude, right? That's why they say giving, grateful, giving thanks. So if there's something in your life that you want to give thanks to, I would say just take a moment, and put that in your heart, and then extend that out to whoever, whatever it is. Things that I'm also grateful for, that I'm sure that you guys are, is, I guess, the smell of good food. Hopefully the turkey's in. I can smell the turkey here. I'm also grateful for my coffee. I also got a nice coffee present, which is really kind, right? I do all this work on Spirit and Coffee, and I don't get payment for it. I do it because I give back to humanity, because I love life. I love the world. Hi, I'm listening here in the Philippines right now. Oh, it's Will. Good morning, Will. Thank you for joining. Good morning, Darlene. Yes. So being grateful. And for those who are not celebrating Thanksgiving because they don't live in great America, and they live in their great country, give thanks today anyway. Why not? Every day is a good day to be thankful and grateful. I'm grateful for the snow. I don't know if it's going to let up. You're welcome, Will. Okay, so let's just take a look. We're reading the Four Agreements, and I want to read because I haven't read in it's been a while. I've been talking quite a bit because that's what I do. Talk, 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 talk. Okay, so we're going to read some of the Four Agreements, have a mini discussion. Just so you know, this weekend I will be having a special guest, and my special guest will be my niece. She's 17, and she's she's so cute because she's just like think she regurgitates a lot of what I say. And then sometimes she's like, oh, now I get it. But she's highly committed to the work and doing the alchemic or spiritual alchemy process, right? So she steps into doing that. So for her, from her approach of the 17-year-old, she may have some very awesome insight as a child and say things that maybe you understand that I, in ways or explain it in ways that I can't. So I'm excited to have her. Okay, so all of humanity is searching for truth, justice, and beauty. We're on an eternal search for truth because we only believe in the lies we have stored in our mind. We're searching for justice because in the belief system we have, there is no justice. We search for beauty because it doesn't matter how beautiful a person is. We don't believe that person has beauty. We keep searching and searching when everything is already within us. There's no truth to find. Wherever we turn our heads, all we see is the truth. But with the agreements and beliefs we have stored in our mind, we have no eyes for this truth. We don't see the truth because we are blind. What blinds us are all those false beliefs we have in our mind. We have the need to be right and to make others wrong. We must trust what we believe. Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to stop here. You know me, I'm going to be stopping all kinds. And I think that I should go back and read these other paragraphs that I didn't read. But let's talk about being right or being wrong. Here we go, right? We sometimes have to be right about things. And I remember that I was doing a workshop and it was with some college students. And I was just standing around and we were talking about the need to be right. And, one of the students said, well, what if you are right? And I said, well, is being right serving you? Is it supporting in your relationship, your friendship? And if it's not, okay, if it's not serving in that friendship or relationship, then could you ask yourself, I don't need to be right about this? And that doesn't mean that maybe factually you don't have the facts. And the reality is, are you right? Because the question is, what are the facts? And as you know, if 99% of what comes out of our mouth is a story and the 1% is the fact, who is right or wrong? When you get to the facts, it really becomes what we call a neutral event. Neutrality has no emotion attached. We bring the emotion to it, and then we want to hold on to these emotions and be right about them, and we will stand firm on them. Now, I'm not saying there's anything right, wrong, good, or bad about doing that. The only thing that I would ask, that I always ask, is it serving you to be that way? Because what happens, right, is that sometimes we will devour, we will ruin, we will totally sever a relationship because we have to be right about something. At some point for me, like even arguing with people, right? If the reality is if they think they're right and you think you're right and you keep arguing, is anybody ever going to be right? No, because in your head, they're never going to convince you. You're never going to convince them. And so it becomes this perpetual cycle of nothing. It could be wasted time in some sense. So the right, wrong, good or bad, those things are really, really, really touchy and they happen all the time. And we stand firm in being right in what we're talking about. Like, he's a jerk, right? Like, this guy's a jerk. And it's like, I have to be right about that. So no matter what this person says, no matter how many times they try to be kind, no matter how many bouquets of flower they give me, he's a jerk. But we put that in our mind and we set it in stone as though it's truth. Now, is it true? And people say, well, yeah, it's true, but is it really true? Can you prove it true? There's other people in the world that think he's the best person on the planet. Why? How are they viewing him? And then we want to convince them and make them right. We talk about people because we want everybody to believe that we're right, they're wrong. Okay. Now, again, is this right, wrong, good, or bad for you doing this? Not necessarily. It's just that if you do stand in that, know that you are pushing people out of your life. So, how do you overcome this or how do you engage with this, right? So, a lot of what happened yesterday. So, during the holidays, I feel like it's a high stress Everybody's supposed to be happy, right? That's what they say. Oh, it's the holidays and everybody should be cheerful, and there's cheerful music happening in the background, and all you see are families that are fighting and they're upset, and so we sort of had our own little family fun last night, and it was funny because there was there was some arguments going on and stuff, and I'm like, look, it is Thanksgiving. Why can't we just be thankful? Why, what are we like, seriously, what is this about? Just be thankful. Be thankful that what? That we are safe. Be thankful that what? That we have food to eat. Let's just be thankful. Let's love each other. Do we have to like argue about switching lanes because you're driving too slow? No, just be grateful that someone's driving you safely. Be thankful that someone got you home safely. Or don't. And here's the thing, if you don't, is it serving you not to be that way? To just drop into things. Because that's the hardest thing, right? It's like we want to be right. And then we're like, oh, and so the right, wrong, good, or bad, who falls victim to what? Then we fall victim to it. And then what happens? We play victim story. And then we fall into this trap of self pity. And then we pull other people in to be in our pity party with us. And it's not serving anything. Really, it isn't. The energy that you put into pity parties is the energy that you could put into something valuable. Okay. And that sounds like a judgment in itself. Even after I said it, I said, well, that sentence sounds pretty judgmental, right? But I would ask anybody, if you're putting it into self pity, is that creating something valuable in your life? If the answer is yes, okay, cool. Continue doing it. But if the answer is no, and I would say about 99% of the time, people are going to say, no, it's not, that we step into the power of personal responsibility. Part of that is recognizing that we don't always have to be right about everything. And we can step away. So for the kid that I was working with in this workshop, I said, look, is this relationship important to you? Well, yeah. Is it worth losing the relationship because you have to be right about a statistic or you have to be right about something? Well, no. Can you let it go? Well, yeah. Is it worth it to let it go and just let it be so that you can continue on with the relationship? Well, yeah. Okay. Let it go. Why do you need to be right about it? What is that going to do? What is that proving to anybody? Is it going to save the world? Me being right about something is going to save the world? Really? No, it's not. Let it go. Easier said than done. I know. I get it. In the moment, we want to be right about what we think we're right about. We want to live as though it's true. And I will tell you that one of the biggest questions that irritates me is that true? And in leadership, they would ask these questions. So is that true? Well, I know it's not true, but it feels true. It feels true. And if it feels true to me, how do I relate to that internal truth that I feel? And I think those are more powerful questions because it would really, really bother me when people would say, well, is it true? Well, I know it's not true, Jack Wagon. I know, I get that it's not the truth, but it feels really true. And that's where the practicality of this work comes in. The practicality of how do we transcend and shift our mindset from that? How do we say, okay, I know this isn't true, like the capital T, but it feels very true for me. And I don't know how to get past the fact that this feels very true, but it's uncomfortable. I don't want to exist here. And it's not helping me with whatever it is I'm up to. So, how do I support myself to get past this? Those are the bigger questions you ask yourself. Again, this platform is not designed to tell you what to do, only lead you through powerful questions. There are powerful questions you can live in for the rest of your life. There are questions that I will ask on here that you could probably spend your entire life asking and maybe never having an answer, but just having the journey that comes along with that question. Because it's always ever changing, right? Questions won't stay the same, or our relationship to that question, I should say, won't stay the same. Because something that's not, you could say, yeah, it's not serving me to be right in this moment. This relationship matters. And then later on, it could serve you. Maybe they always got to be right and you're always bowing down and now you feel like a doormat and you're like, no, that's not serving me either. Maybe the relationship's just not serving me. So ask yourself. So I've done this before, and part of this is taking personal responsibility. I'll tell you, like clockwork, I will take personal responsibility when I'm called out on something. It's not easy all the time. It's a practice. But what it is me getting really truly honest with myself about something. If I get feedback from a person that feels real and it's like, yeah, I kind of see their side, I will say, you're right. I'm taking responsibility for that. And I can shift. Now, when I say you're right, right? When I say you're right, right? Right in what sense? Not right as in it's the right thing to do, but right for me. You've got to understand what's going to serve you in your life. If you don't understand this, you're never going to get anywhere. You just won't. You're going to be in a self perpetuated cycle of, I get to be right. Everybody else is wrong. I know better. Or do you always make yourself wrong for everything? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Not standing firm in your belief system either. So this becomes it's like walking on a tightrope because there's this very fine line of balancing out, right? What's right for you and what's wrong, and sort of finding that balance that keeps you in the center and walking forward. So let me tell you, I will not argue with people. If I know that they're not budging, why am I going to argue? I don't need people to see things from my perspective. You know, I will seek to understand and get clarity from their perspective. Perhaps me, myself, maybe I have a glitch in sort of the system or the way that I think, and there's something that I can learn. So I listen, I watch, I observe, I hear. And when I engage, I tell myself, is this worth me pressing upon or forcing upon what I think is right or wrong? The answer is mostly no. Shut up, Natalie. But then there are times when I feel like my laws are and I'll stand firm. I'll stand firm in what I'm speaking. I'll stand firm in my convictions, knowing that I'm standing on the grounds of what? The principles that I have. My values will not be compromised. So there are certain things where I'm saying, does it serve me to say, this doesn't seem right? Yeah, absolutely. I'll stand firm in that. Would it serve me to be around someone who's going to compromise my integrity? And the answer is no. Doesn't mean I don't love them. Doesn't mean I don't support them. It just means it's not for me. And as I've said over and over, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm not here to be everybody's cup of tea. And I'm okay with that. Our cup of coffee, whatever you want to say. I think cup of coffee is better because this is spirit and coffee. Like maybe I'm dark and bitter to some people, or maybe I'm sweet and cream, like peaches and cream. And maybe, I don't know, I'm somebody's cinnamon dolce latte extravaganza. And maybe somebody else is like, you bitter, I don't drink bitter hot coffee. Whatever it is. Okay. So I could be someone's cup of coffee, not. And the same for you. So what we do is we attach ourselves to the people that don't want us around to try to convince them that we're good. And we have to be right about that. Let go of that shit. It's just dead weight. And are you ever going to convince them? Probably not. And why are you spending your energy trying to convince people? Stop it or don't. You'll always hear me that, Podbean listeners. I never tell you what to do. Sort of sometimes my opinions will come out because I'm human. But I try to be as neutral as possible on this platform. And if my opinion comes out, I will acknowledge that it's an opinion. And then I'll give advice. And if it's advice, it's not up to you to take my advice. That's not what this is here for. But it comes out because I'm human. And I'll say, do this, do this. And then at the end, I say, or don't, because it's your choice. You don't have to. This is not, hey, I'm a drill sergeant. You guys are going to do this and that and the other. And then you're going to be little puppets and you do whatever. No, it's not how this works. And the work itself, the practical use of esoteric wisdom itself is a choice. It's something that we choose daily. It's something that we choose moment by moment. Am I going to be authentic in this moment? Am I going to choose that or not? Am I going to sell out of myself in this moment or am I not? Am I going to stand firm in my principles or not? Am I going to commit to this thing or not? It's a choice, which is one thing that they always talk about, especially in a lot of religions, is the free will, the will that we have, the freedom. Although some perspectives say that we don't have free will, that everything has already been planned out and that every choice we make will lead us to the same result eventually. But we have choices on how we're going to get to that same result. Some painful, some awesome. So asking yourself, if there is one result, which in my personal opinion is love, we are love. We're always trying to bring ourselves back to love. We're always trying to bring ourselves back into connection, right? Back to the source, back to God, back to our higher self. And that is for me, that is the great work, is that we're looking and searching when the answer is here with us always. It's never left us. It's always been with us. And love will dissolve all. And that every choice that we make is an opportunity to remind us of that, to bring us back to that over and over and over and over and over. So every opportunity. So when we are maybe being right about something, like I got to be right about this. And you know what? I'm not talking to my in-laws or, it's the holidays, or I'm not talking to my brother-in-law or my sister-in-law. I'm not talking to my mother, whatever it is, or my brother or my sister or my auntie or whatever it is, right? That I have to be self-righteous and I have to hold on to this. And, oh, and guess what? Those things right there. Okay. Is it serving you? And it might be. And if it is, fine, continue. But if it's not serving you, you get to ask yourself some questions, right? Like, what is going to serve me? How am I going to work past this? Do I have to be right about this? Like, if it's compromising my values, then I'm going to stand firm in that. But beyond that, right? Other little nuances like, okay, you have people who will stay stuck in political conversations. I rarely talk about political things because the reality is to me, it doesn't matter. What is that going to do for you? How is that going to support you in your life? I mean, unless you have direct connection to these politics, there's still going to be politics. They're still going to do what they're going to do. You're not going to change them or convince them. Now, here's the deal. You're going to talk to somebody and you're going to be like, and I've seen this before, right? Or we'll talk about the conspiracy theorist people, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Okay, I'm just giving an example. I like to talk about conspiracy theories, and sometimes I get involved in the politic conversation. But here's the deal, and this is what happens, okay? Two friends are talking, and there's the saying, don't talk politics or religion, especially when you're drinking, especially at the dinner table. Okay, well, people do it anyway, okay? Because people are people. Now, here's the deal. You're sitting with a friend, and you start to talk about the politics. Now, I'm not just talking about US politics, I'm talking about world politics, any politics, right? It could be politics within your own organization, whatever. Politics are everywhere. Okay, so good morning, Jay. Good morning, Daniel. I think I said good morning. Now, here's the deal. You're talking politics. One person says this, the other person says that. They have two different viewpoints. Maybe within our structure, it would be Republican, Democrat. Oh, well, those Republicans. Oh, well, those Democrats. And they go on and on and on and on and on. And before you know it, they're angry at each other because neither one of them is, first of all, they're making a point and they're not going to shift. Neither one is going to convince the other. And before you know it, they're not friends anymore. Over what? What changed except the friendship? Did they change the politics? No. Did they change each other's viewpoint? No. Did they change the way they're going to live their life every day? Probably not. They're still going to wake up and go to work or whatever it is that they do. And they're going to go on with their life. Now they've severed an entire relationship that was maybe, I don't know, 20-year-old, I'm just making this up, 20-year-old relationship, friendship, over a talk about politics and who has to be right about what view is better, which is not even gonna, does it matter or does it? In the bigger sense, I'd say no, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? It didn't change the fact who's in office. It's not going to change the fact. Now we have a chance to vote. You could go vote but to let it go, right? Why are we going to hold on to that? Now that's up to you. For me, when things show up, and I'm going to tell you when things show up, and I'm going to tell you I do it for my own harmony, for my own self. Good morning, Josh. What is the subject? So right now, what I do, Josh, is I'm reading from the Four Agreements. I do usually do a bunch of readings. I was reading before this book, the Christ Consciousness, or 13 Keys to Christ Consciousness, the Christ Blueprint. What I do, Josh, is I read and then I talk a lot because I'm a talker. And I just give insight as to the esoteric practical use of spiritual alchemy. So subjects do change to prove a point. More than to prove a point, it's actually to help people to understand how to use esoteric wisdom and an alchemic process within their daily life. Now, that's the background happening. Do I say that all the time on Spirit and Coffee? No. But what I do is give world live examples, or I give you guys examples from movies, quotes, and other things to sort of support you through how are you going to live your best life, right? So, Josh, a lot of it's like, how do I live my best life? Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Jay. I think I said good morning to you guys. That's the best to do ever. Go ahead. Okay. Yes. So there you go, Josh. I'm glad I gave you an understanding. Good morning, Bob. And then I also engage with listeners as well. So as you guys write, I actually engage and I try to make sense of maybe what you're typing. Sometimes I do a bad job. Sometimes I misread things or, my own perceptions come into play. And that's with being right, wrong, good, or bad. And so right now, Josh, we're talking about being right, having to be right about things. Right. And it's for me, it's like, let it go, especially with people you love. Who cares? Now, if it's something to get clarity, let's say, for instance, you get into a little fight with your parents or your mom or your dad or your brother, whatever it is, okay? And you ask yourself, really, what do I need to be right about? If there was a fight in the family, perhaps, okay? And I want to talk about this a little bit because we know that it's Thanksgiving and sometimes it brings up stuff for people, the holidays. Good morning, Dennis. And let's say that you're fighting, with your family, whatnot, okay? And it's over something, yeah, something so tiny, okay? But it's magnified over time. Now, this is different. This goes a little bit deeper into the subconscious and maybe trauma that's happened when you were younger. So you have had enough. You're done. You're over it. You're like, I'm done. I've put up with this too much. I can't do it no more. And the reality is it's compromising your personal integrity and your internal truth. That's different. That's a different story. Okay, that's different. The story that you have created is deeply rooted in the subconscious mind. It's a story that gets played out even when you try to shift the way you behave. I talked about the three mirrors that we look through. And sometimes what happens is that mirror doesn't get to the trauma phase until we get to something like the holidays, right? Or to something that ignites that, ugh, no. And we start to fight and we have to be right about it. Really, what you're doing is trying to be understood and heard. And I'm not saying this is every instance, but mostly people want to be heard. They want to be recognized. They want people to understand what they're trying to say. Like when you smacked me because I went and got some turkey when I wasn't supposed to, now I hate turkey. Okay. That's just an example. And it ends up in a big fight every year. Because really, the reality is the trigger is when you were young and there was some trauma around what happened during the holidays or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be the holidays. This is just an example because it's Thanksgiving. Really asking yourself, what is my truth? What is my authentic truth? And how do I communicate that out in a way that they can understand? Are they willing to understand? Are they willing to listen? And if the answer is no and that bothers you, you have every right to walk away from that relationship if it's not serving you. Sometimes we need a timeout. But if you're fighting over something so meaningless, like the other day, like with kids, right? I'll just say this. Like my niece, she's 17, she's young. And she thinks she knows best, and she does. She's a very intelligent. She mostly gets things and she teaches me things. But there's some things that I have wisdom about that she doesn't necessarily because I've lived longer. I've gone through a bunch of stuff and I can see where that's going to lead her. And so I offer some advice. And sometimes like I don't want to hear it. And I'm like, okay. Or she wants to argue it. So I just shut up and I say she's trying to argue to make her point right. And that I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to try to make myself right over her. I'm going to let her think and be right about what she's right about and let her go and let her think about it. If you add logs to the fire, it's going to get bigger. Okay, it's going to magnify. It's your fire is going to get bigger. If you step away from an argument, and it's happened quite often, I've done this more than once where people will yell or fight, and I just diffuse it by not saying anything. I just don't say anything. I've had people unfriend me from Facebook who I've gotten into sort of um there was disagreements. We saw things from a different perspective, but I stood quiet. I'm like, I'm not going to engage in this. It's not worth my time to engage in this argument for what? What are we going to get out of it? Is it going to go anywhere? And it's not. So I'm just going to stay quiet. Go ahead. You could be right. I'll let you be right. I'm not going to gain anything from arguing with you to try to prove that I'm right in what I believe. So I'm just going to shut up. And I did. And I just stay quiet. And I just look at them and I let them just talk. Here's what happens when this happens, when you do this with people. They start to hear their self. See, people never really hear their internal dialogue because they make themselves busy with things. Right? They're like, I got to do this. I got to do this. Really, what they're doing is avoiding. That's why most people have a hard time meditating, is because they don't want to hear what their internal dialogue is telling them. But if you're in a heated argument and you're like, I love this person, I'm not going to fight with them. And you just be quiet and just look at them and let them talk. I mean, look at them directly in their eyes as they're talking and let them go. Go ahead. Say what you got to say. Say it all. Here's the deal. Most people become attached, right, to what they're hearing. And all they can think about is what they want to say next, rather than being in neutrality and objective. If you dropped into neutrality, didn't take it personal, which is one of the agreements, and you just listened and let them speak, they start to hear their own internal dialogue. And they start to self correct based on what they believe. So if they believe that their intention is not to be harmful, but yet they're sitting there yelling because they're triggered and it's a natural reaction, right? They're human and they're overreacting about something, yelling, whatever. And you have to be right, they have to be right. And you just stay quiet and let them go. Guess what? They start to hear themselves and then they start to go, what the hell am I saying? So most people don't even know what they're saying. They just talk. I do self correction all the time. I'm self correcting all the time because language is important and how and what we say and the tonality in how we say it is critical, right? So, again, when you let people just talk and you drop into neutrality, they will self correct based on their own personal values, which they do have, even though they don't maybe know what they are. They have some internal compass, or they'd be out there doing, I don't know, crazy things and not caring about anybody. But they do, they care. They have a conscience. They want to do the right thing mostly. And so what happens? You let them talk, and then they start to hear themselves, and then they start to say, what the hell am I saying? I sound like a crazy person. And then sometimes you'll get an apology. Not always, but sometimes they'll be like, you know what? I'm sorry. That was crazy. They have nowhere to go. Okay. And I've done this multiple times. I do it all the time, actually, because I'm like, I'm not going to argue. What am I going to argue for? What am I arguing about, really? That I have to be right about something? I don't have to be right about it. I don't have to convince you what I know internally for me. I don't have to convince you about who I am. I know who I am. I needn't convince you. It's not my job. You either know who I am or you don't. Period. End of story. I'm one of the most authentic people you're going to meet. Not an easy practice. Taking time. And there's times where I can't compromise my authenticity anymore, actually. But I'm not going to argue and try to convince you of who I am. That's not, again, not my job. Most people want to convince you, but I'm a good person. I really am a good person. I'm like, you know what? I'm a good person. If you don't believe it, not my problem. It's not. I can't sit here spending all of my energy, and that's where we started, is giving all my energy to convince somebody of something that they're never going to believe anyway. Because all of that energy that I just gave to this person who's never going to believe me anyway, maybe doesn't believe that I love them truly. Good morning, Kim. I could be putting my energy into things that actually support others, or actually I can create something meaningful, rather than putting that energy into toxic things that aren't going to go anywhere. For what? How is that serving my higher purpose? How is that serving my internal integrity? So again, you're going to hear, and mostly because I was listening to my podcast, I was like, I want to hear myself on Podbean. How does my voice sound? I hope I sound good to you guys on Podbean. I hope I have a radio voice. My mom said I had a phone voice. But I listened and I'm like, yeah, I do ask a lot of questions within these podcasts. Those questions are important because I actually ask myself questions, right? I don't have answers. I have questions. I have tons of questions. And I live my life through the questions that I have. So that's one of the questions I ask myself. in being right or wrong. We have to be right about shit. Do I need to be right about this? No. Is it serving me to be right about this? No. And most of the time the answer is no. Um, is being right about this going to help me with my higher self? No. Is being right about this, you could just go through a list of questions. Then why, and then the last question, then why the hell am I trying to convince somebody? Or why the hell am I not letting this go? Why am I taking this so personally? It's meaningless. Why am I taking it so personal that I think the earth is flat and they think it's round? Why? How is that going to support you in your daily life? Yay, you get points for being right about what? I can't prove that. Can you? And if you can, awesome. Is that supporting you in your higher self? How are you, how is that supporting you in your higher self? Is it your job to know this? Do you get paid for it? Is someone going to give you food because you know the whatever? Like, how is this supporting you? I mean, mostly it's probably because you want points and you want people to like you and you want to be liked and you have to be cool. And, so there's all these things because why? Maybe you feel like you're not worthy, you feel like you're not enough, and you got to convince people that you are. Now, is there anything right, wrong, good, or bad about that? No, it's just recognizing that that's what it is. That's the driver. For me, I've come to the realization that I don't give two shits if people see my value or not because I know my value. You don't have to see it because I know what my value is. I know who I am. Once you understand who you are and you're firm in that, you cannot be wavered. I know what I'm worth. I know what I bring to the table. I understand the value that I bring. If you can't recognize it, then that's not my problem. It's not my job to convince you that I have value. Everybody brings value. And that's another big thing is recognizing the value that others bring. That's another way. Like, okay, we're going to fight if the earth is flat or round. But the reality is, does that even matter? What value does this person bring to my life? Is it worth not being their friend over this conversation of fighting over this or that? No. Like, we go snowboarding together, or we go skiing together, or we go rafting together, or we go camping together, or we have years of hanging out and supporting one another, or like I get their coffee when they don't have money and they get my coffee when I don't have money. We support each other. Like, that's what's important. Good morning, Morgan. Good morning, Liz. Good morning to those of you on Podme. I'm doing good. Thank you, Morgan. Okay. So again, being right. That's a huge one for people. I used to have to be right about everything. And let me tell you, does it make you the liked person? I will take personal responsibility pretty quickly. If I do something and someone's like, well, this and this, and I'm like, oh, you're right. Yes. Okay, got it. And I shift. But I'm human, right? So I'm not perfect. And that was the biggest problem I think that occurred is that people think, well, oh, you do this work, you must be perfect. No, it's called practical use. It's called practice. Like maybe I've practiced longer. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect. And they say practice makes perfect. Yeah, but is it ever really truly perfect? No, there's always twists and turns and ways to learn new things, right? It's like there's always maybe a tweak, right? Or the times change. The paradigm, the thought process, the perspectives of life change. We get to shift all the time. So it's an ongoing process. And the biggest thing I would say to you is ask yourself those questions. Do I need to be right about this? And again, it's a fine line. Like I told you, it's like walking on a tightrope because sometimes You're like, I'm always saying I'm not right. This person always in my life has to be right about everything. I'm always the one to just like say whatever. I'm not going to. And then you got to ask yourself, are you putting yourself in a space of a doormat, which is a different story and different results? So ask yourself if the relationship's serving you. That's it. That's that simple. And if it's like, yeah, it is serving me, then maybe I need to look at how I engage it and what things are important and not. Is it important that, when I'm cold, they give me their jacket? I just said that because I'm kind of cold. It's getting cold outside. I'm like, ooh, I'm cold. But, or, I don't know, your friend gives you lip gloss so that your lips can look pretty, or I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But, you know, look at that. Look at the value that your friend brings you, your family, your sister, your sibling, whatever, and ask yourself, the fight that we got in or over, did I need to be right about something that didn't matter? Like, who's the better football team? Who gives a shit? They don't pay you. They're not paying you to advertise them. You're not getting the money that comes with the player. Why you got to fight about who's a better football team? You know what I mean? Those things. The earth is round or flat. You're not a physicist unless you are. And if you are, does it matter to someone who doesn't even understand it? No. What matters is kindness. What matters is how we treat each other. What matters is, do we have compassion for one another? Can we see each other? Like the other day, a coworker, and I could see she was stressed. And I looked right at her and I said, do you need something? Are you okay? And you know what her response was? Thank you for asking me. To recognize those moments, to recognize when people are stressed and they have to be right about something because they're stressed out, and let them be right about it. Who cares? Okay, good. Good for you. And they'll come back and say, oh my God, I've had so many people come back and say, I was being crazy. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I know I'm crazy too. It's that recognition that we all have it, right? But because you guys are Spirit and Coffee followers, you guys get to be a little bit more awake. Yay, congratulations. You guys get to be more responsible. I don't know if there's more responsible, but you get to be responsible for yourself in awareness. Yay. That means waking up and actually being personal responsible. Not like I blame myself responsible. Not like, oh, I'm always to blame, responsible, but responsible in a way that you internally understand what your truth is and that you can stand firm in that and that you can be authentic in communicating what that is for you. Okay? Awesome. Oof. See, I'm telling you, this book's going to take forever to read because there's a lot to unpack, because there's a lot of distinctions in the book that support. That is why, again, it's called A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom. You've got to practice thinking about it, conceptualizing it, making it sound pretty in your head is not going to get the work done. It sounds beautiful in your head, but in reality, it's a mess. It's not easy. It's not easy when you're in the heat of, trust me, I know because I practiced, and in the heat of the moment, the first time I ever practiced this one thing of just being silent when I thought I had to be right about stuff was the hardest thing to do, because I like to talk. I was like, shut up, Natalie. Just shut up. Zip. And there was a lot of things being said to me, a lot of things that people would say it's not very nice. And I said, you know what? It's not nice, and it's not nice. It's nothing. It's just an event. Shut up and listen. And in the end, there was apologies. And in the end, I apologized. And I had a better clarity about how I was viewed by a person. And I was okay with that. Some people, though, will say, I don't like you. I'm out of here. I say, okay, that's fine. You don't have to like me. I'm not asking you to like me. I'm not asking you to say I'm your cup of tea. It's not this. Well, I will ask you, is your life joyful, happy? And what you're doing right now, is it working for you? And if the answer is no, then what is it that you get to do, or who do you get to be to live into your power? That's it. Simple. None of that said, do you like me? Because whatever journey you take for yourself and the journey that you go on for yourself may not even include me eventually. And that's fine. People will be like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't watch your thing. I'm like, why are you sorry? You don't got to be sorry for me. You don't got to be sorry. You don't be sorry if you don't listen. This platform wasn't designed to force people, coerce people into. I don't even invite people in. Whoever shows up, shows up. One day I might spread it out for those who want to listen, but I'm not going to force this upon people. That's not what this is. This platform wasn't designed for that. It's like the people who truly want to do shit in their life and like get stuff done, listen to this because that's what I'm going to tell you to do. Go get shit done in your life. Stop thinking about it. Stop conceptualizing. Get your ass out and do something. Try it. It's not easy. It's not fun, but it's worth it. And at the end, you'll have greater rewards for doing it. Practice, 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 practice. There you go. And most people, because I'm a stickler for practices, when I hold people accountable to their practice, like I'm not talking to her because she's going to hold me accountable. But I expect the same from you. Hold me accountable. And they do. My family does. Trust me, people hold me accountable. You tell your viewers this and you're doing that. I'm like, you're right. It's true. Okay. Okay. Clear. I'm human. I fall off sometimes. So then we just keep moving forward. Okay. So there's the message for today. Do you have to be right about shit today? No, let it go if it was meaningless. If it was something that was deeply rooted in the subconscious mind and has circles around trauma for family, I would say honor that. And if you have an opportunity to get clear about what that is or clearer about what that is so that you can communicate that from a place of power and responsibility rather than blame and shame, do it or don't. Up to you. But if you could dig deep and you can recognize it and you can speak your authentic truth without having to be right, but only be right about the principles that you stand on, right? And stand firm in your small truth, not the truth. Remember, it is not the truth, it is just your truth. If you could do that, okay, good morning, Denisha. If you could do that for your life, or at least start to take baby steps, you're going to be ahead of the game. And also, you're going to live a happy, joyful life. It's painful at first, but go practice, you guys. Don't take my word for it, practice it. And then tell me all of the success you have because it might not be successful at first. You'd be like, girlfriend, you have no idea what happened. The whole thing blew up. I'm like, yep, that's what happens. Got to blow it up before you can rise from them ashes. You got to burn up the. I have devoured and burned down and rose from the ashes. I don't know how many times. Okay. That's what the phoenix is about. It is a mess sometimes. And sometimes we have to go through the fire, but we can't get out of it until we go through it. Okay. So there you go. Good morning, Faith. Thank you all for showing up. I'm going to have a special guest this weekend. Happy Thanksgiving to those who are celebrating Thanksgiving. If you're on the other side of the world, I give thanks for you showing up today. And thank you guys for choosing not Spirit and Coffee, but choosing yourself. That's what that's about. When you guys show up here, you're choosing yourself. You're not choosing me. You're choosing yourself. Because that's what I'm going to tell you every day. Choose you. Okay? There you go. Choose you. All right. So I love you guys. Have a magical day. Okay. Love you. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Faith. We're still on the live Podbean. And I just ended my Spirit and Coffee live on Facebook. For those of you still on Podbean, you do have the opportunity to join me on Facebook Live. I do a live video so you'd see my face if you choose to. um, but I know it's easier to listen via voice. And happy Thanksgiving again to those of you on Podbean. Podbean's been a really magnificent tool that I started using. I've been doing Spirit and Coffee for those of you who might be new on Facebook Live for almost 2 years now. And I decided to expand to Podbean and so that I can share the love. So that's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for. Okay. So have a good day. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.